this policy. That would possibly be, I move that we accept this policy and with the revision of changing this back to a $10,000 fee.
Okay.
$10,000 amount. So we can discuss it.
She had something else.
I did have something else, and I'm so sorry.
No, that's
I want to
okay.
make sure that we're recording, so I'm doing a backup recording.
Recording in progress.
So there we go. Okay, sorry about that. The only other things that I had on here, and just little stuff. So the newspaper, we always use the Hartford Current, which is Tribune Publishing or whatever. So that will cover your New Haven Register, New London Day, and Hartford Current. They actually do all of them. So that covers all of them in one shot, which is nice. We rarely use the East Haddam paper only because it's a 2-week delay. So if we put in a bid on this day and the bid ends in 2 weeks, we pretty much have kind of tied our hands. We have to either add another week or add 2 weeks onto our thing. So that's the only thing with the local paper. We considered, in the past, it always considered the Hartford Current as our local paper. And we've always used that as our local paper. So by law, we've always had, and by policy, always had the bids in the Hartford Current, no matter what. And most of that is actually online, so that's great that you put the online on there. Few people actually pick up a newspaper anymore. It's kind of fun. The only other thing, and you don't need to add it, but just to let you know that we do always, with all of our competitive bids, put it on the DAS CT Source website, so that the state of Connecticut knows that we have a bid going on. So those are always on there as well. And it is also always on our website, which you have. Okay, perfect. So that was the advertising. And the only other last thing I have is transportation. I have no problem with you taking it off. The only thing with transportation is the reason why transportation in now new H was not on here was because there are, and has been ever since I've been here, only ever one bid for transportation. So following this policy, we should have 2 or more bids at all times. We rarely get more than 1 bid for transportation. If we do, that's great, but we need to have the ability in transportation to accept that 1 bid. Like if it's only comes in and it's just MJ or just ADACO or just whatever.
There's more than one bus company. Why do we only get 1 bid?
Because our bus companies, we're a very difficult town. And not difficult to work with, but difficult to navigate. We are 59 square miles.
Quick clarification.
Yeah, we are 59 square miles of roads. They are back roads. We have not a very large, there's not a very large fleet overall, just 10. So it is not always has not always been a desirable bid for other companies. So, and last year last time we went to bid, we got MJ and DACO. The year before that, we just got DACO, or the bid process before that, we just got DACO. So it is fine not having it on, removing it that far, I don't have a problem with it. I just wanted to let you know that there might be, you never know, in the
Which
future.
section are you talking about here?
G.
New H.
H, the new H.
New H.
Sorry. So you pulled transportation off because typically transportation did not follow under this policy, 3322. That was always in personnel and negotiations, in a private conversation. So that was a personnel and negotiations contract that was pulled together with transportation. And we don't always get more than 1 bid, which is why transportation was not covered under 3322. I believe that's the same reason with legal services. I could be wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not willing to change it personally.
That's fine. I'm just letting you know the reasons why, and
There
as
have
long
been-
as you guys are okay with the fact that at some point, if you only get 1 bid, we don't have a choice.
Well,
That's
that's,
unfortunate.
at the risk of sounding dumb, that's just common sense.
Right, I know.
You
Well,
try to get more bids and you don't get them, you don't get them. There's not much you could do about it.
right, so.
Um,
So anyway, I just wanted to say
But-
that, like I said, I have no problem having it taken off of there. I just wanted to give you a little history of it.
Maybe I'm not understanding it right, but the way that this reads is that
Tell me what page and stuff you're looking at, what section?
back into procedures, A, purchases for more than 7,500 but less than 15,000 is where it says that shall solicit from at least 2, 3 if feasible, but that's only for the amounts of 7,500 to 15,000, right? Purchases for above 15 and more shall undergo a competitive bidding process. So what Cindy was saying is it's only requiring 2, if not 3, bids for that 7,500 to 15,000.
A
Right, but
competitive
those-
bid always is at least 2. A competitive bid is considered at least 2 bids.
Okay.
So that's just what that language is, and I guess we might want to throw that in there, but yeah, a competitive bid is considered 2. If we
Okay.
get less than 2 for any other kind of project, we usually go back out to bid again. But transportation is one of those ones that we don't always get
Right,
that
because
option.
you have it open, whoever wants to bid, whether it's DACO, M&J, or whomever can, but typically only one.
In the past, it's been 1 last year, or 2, whatever it was.
Okay.
We had 2, but I just let you know. So, it's fine with me, the way it's written, I just wanted to give you the history of it, so.
Thank you.
All right, so anything else?
Everybody?
All right.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the policy with the revisions that we've outlined.
Okay,
Say
let's,
them
just because
specifically.
it's been an issue in the past,
Okay.
one revision is to go back to $10,000 under paragraph 2 of section F. So that's one. And what other revision are we looking at, if one? Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it passes. So we'll move this forward to the full board at the next meeting. All right. Our next policy on the agenda has to do with graduation requirements and stuff like that. This was something that I kind of had flagged in the back of my head, and then before we got to it, Dr. DeBrito brought it up to me. I tried, it seemed like we were in agreement on most everything. I tried to capture what we talked about. I may not have done it accurately enough, or there may be people who have other reasons to be concerned about things, or, you know, speak up. What's on your mind?
No, but as far as everything, I liked everything that I saw, the 25 to 28, everything, the requirements, I had no qualms of any sort to it. But
We can probably give a little history here. The school used to have a credit requirement of 28 credits. And then there was a recent change not too long ago to be in line with the state that increased theirs to 25.
Correct. And for me, that was, when I realized that we were essentially stepping back, that was part of my concern.
Yep.
I did not see a particularly good reason. Just because it's feasible, I don't know that there's a good reason to reduce standards. Having said that, there are other things in here, and even that, Chris, just for the record, how many credits can a kid earn each year?
Good question. So each year, a student has the opportunity to earn 8 credits per year. So that would be a total of 32 grades 9 through 12.
That's what I thought.
With that said, though, any student that has a learning center in their schedule, they don't receive credit for that. And so those children would only be able to max out at 28. And so that would be the graduation requirement.
learning center, what is considered learning center?
It's like a resource center for a small group of students that, through the IEP process, it's embedded into their schedule for those more hands-on or more one-to-one services.
Yeah, of course.
So that impacts the flexibility too.
But all those kids could reach 28.
They could reach 28.
Do you recall why it was changed a few years ago?
To remove the credit bearing for Learning Center or?
No, to go from 28 to 25. Do you recall what happened here?
There were many presentations. Cindy could probably help me out.
It was probably the longest, one of our longest policies to ever pass. It took us about 2.5 years to get this one policy passed.
The gist of it was to provide more flexibility in choosing the classes and more opportunity to take the classes that students might not be able to, having to accumulate 28 credits. With the new state recommendations where they've created like buckets, his packet shows the policy well where there's 9 graduation requirements for a humanities bucket, and the variety inside of those buckets is can be very, very flexible. With 28, there were additional graduation requirements that were a part of our previous policy that limited the flexibility of student taking all culinary classes or all agricultural science classes because they needed to still achieve or take the other graduation requirements that were part of our policy in the past.
But you didn't have to do both. You can still have flexibility on electives and not increase the bucket and meet the 28. What you're saying is the previous language tied the two together
Yes.
for specificity of where those credits landed.
That's correct.
But you can completely open it up beyond the state requirements and have them all count as electives and not decipher exactly where. Okay.
Correct.
Jackie, I think you were gonna.
Yeah, so what I think I heard is you mentioned that students with an IEP have this, they have their 7 credits per school year, and then the last slot is for this specialized group
Correct.
that they don't get credit for.
That's correct.
My concern with having the 28 credits required for graduation for students with an IEP is there is zero wiggle room. There's zero chance for something happening where they aren't able to get the max 7 credits in a year, which would, I think I'm understanding, they would be able to graduate on time or would be required to put more in. Is there a way to add to the policy for students with an IEP that either they get a credit for that class that they're in or are not required the full 28?
Under federal
credits.
law,
Okay.
an IEP takes precedence. So if the pupil personnel team feels that 28 credits is too burdensome based on the student's disability, it can wipe it out anytime it wants.
So it can
It
be
already currently
individualized
exists.
for
Yes,
each
it is
student?
individualized.
Yeah, it's already
Absolutely.
a thing.
Okay,
That's
Yeah.
right.
okay,
It already
thank you.
exists, yeah.
Just curious why they wouldn't receive a credit, obviously, or for the learning.
There is an instruction, that's new instruction happening in that location. It's like an opportunity to get work done and you might get some support, some assistance, but there is no new instruction happening. Whereas credits are very specific to new learning.
And a way to think about it is it's basically a guided or a supported study hall.
Sure. Okay.
I do have one question.
Speak up, please.
I do have one question. Under instruction, that second paragraph, the section that was added, that the credit may be granted if, in the shared opinion of the high school principal and school superintendent, the student demonstrates proficiency. That line concerns me a little bit because it's open to interpretation. that concerns me a little bit. Either the student has met the criteria or they haven't met the criteria. I don't think we need all that language.
Well, we have to keep in mind, this is new. Currently, they don't get credit at the high school level. There has to be a way to determine how one does that. If it's guided by a couple of admin professionals, we can say we trust their judgment and move forward. And you're right, it's a little amorphous. The flip side of it is we then have to give a mandate that they will develop an assessment procedure or policy, which will then have to go before this committee and then eventually through the board, I think. I may be wrong on that, but that's my suspicion. I personally think I could make an argument that either one should be effective. I understand your concern. I guess part of me didn't want to bottle things up. I don't want to spend 2.5 years on this.
So me and my math, on your last page with your credits, 6.4, C. So you have 9 credits in humanities, 9 credits in math, science, and STEM, and 7 additional credits. That's still that's 25.
That's the current policy.
Right. Well, but 28 starting. So I guess my question is, where's the 3? Because down here it adds to 28, but it doesn't add to 28. It only adds to 25.
You would have to do 3 additional
You have
electives.
to find 3 more
Yeah.
things
The-
to put in here.
Yeah, the other piece too is that the wording in the legislation is requiring, it seems, that the financial literacy have credit count as humanities, although math teacher can teach it. So there's a long list of certifications that can teach it, but the graduation credit
we
is
can't.
going into this other bucket.
Oh, I did not realize that.
It's yeah, so
That's
it,
fine, then
you
that
know,
language
so
changes.
that's all right here is that I wish you could count either towards STEM or humanities. I'd love to be able to have
Well,
the
we had talked
district,
about that.
yeah, but when you look at the language, I think it says shall count towards a humanities graduation requirement.
Either humanities or elective, great, correct.
Okay.
The, on page 17 of the K policy that it's included as well, it shows that same thing.
The language.
Okay. Like I said, it's a starting point. So in that case, do we just move that up to humanities and list it as
You're right.
a requirement?
Absolutely, it's a required, yes, it's a required specific half-credit course. And Jackie, in any of these, for whatever reason, when a PPT is held, an IEP will trump any of these requirements in that team, for anything,
Thank you.
yeah. I'm not sure we got clarity on your paragraph.
Yeah,
I don't think we resolved
I don't think we
it.
did. So, again, anything that could be open to interpretation troubles me greatly. I'd rather be crystal clear on whatever the criteria needs to be. And I don't mean to be the person who is going to hold this up for 2 years.
It's fine. And there are other ways. I mean, we could say that they have to get a certain grade in the course at the middle school. That's one way of doing it. We did this when I was in Wallingford, explicitly at that time for world languages, because they were trying to encourage that. And I think, and I may be wrong, it's been a long time, but I think the determinant was you had to have a B or a B plus in the course at the middle school level in order to get credit at the high school level. The problem with that is it becomes sort of why. I mean, if they completed the work and it's passing at a C- everywhere else, why do you have to do that? I think it was quick and dirty, and that's what they chose, which frankly is kind of what I was suggesting, a different variety of quick and dirty. Chris, you got any feelings about this? This is obviously have more of an impact on your schools than anything else.
Sure. I think awarding the middle school credit's a great idea. What you're citing is a concern that pops into my brain as well. Should the students be asked to take the midterm and final exam as an example of a criteria? But then what score do they need to achieve on that in order to move, right? So I think the logistics behind some of that is something we have to iron out. But I think an assessment at the high school level, or that would be administered to the students that are taking Spanish 1 at the high school level to the middle school kids makes sense. You know, and then successful completion of the course in the middle school. What successful means, maybe that's Mr. Peacock's area and saying this was successful, you know, to move on to the next level. But I think both of those things need to to be brought into consideration.
I think in order for it to be a high school equivalent, it really should mirror the same curriculum, the same assessments as high school students, and you complete it successfully, then you're awarded the credit. However, GPA would not count for your high school
And I
career.
think that's what we've got in there.
Yeah, right, I know, I saw that, just so that you understand, we're verbalizing that.
So two thoughts. I think the irony now is because so many children take algebra in 8th grade, it's like you really want the high school algebra students to do what 8th grade students are doing, because more are doing it in 8th grade.
That was the other
Yeah.
place that they
Which
were
is-
starting
which
to
is kind
do
of
it
cool.
after the world language.
Which is kind of cool. And so I recall a conversation about, I don't remember the details, so this is just like the hazy 10 years ago when we talked about this last, is that the high school wasn't interested in giving algebra credit because it would discourage taking higher level math at the high school, that if they're coming and starting at geometry and they go through a regular track and they get that AP Calc, great. The fear is that if you knock out one of your math credits early, then maybe you wouldn't take a math for perhaps even your junior, senior year. I don't think that's necessarily true, but that was a conversation that had been.
That has not been my experience. If
Yeah.
anything,
I don't think
it's
it's
the
true.
aggressive
It's one thing,
students
yeah.
want to take AP Calc, and to be honest, I do have concerns about accelerating math content for everybody, all 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and high school during just those few years. For every single kid is taking high school algebra as an 8th grader.
So they don't all, but that was definitely the push.
So that we would have to, I have to really look at how that is currently happening.
Sure.
So that we don't have gaps in instruction and that we truly do have a path for
Well,
students who
Yeah.
have this prowess in mathematics.
I agree, and that actually, in my mind, that applies to the world languages example also.
But I don't think there was this push that everybody needed to, how is that, the
So
world
Well, I'm
language?
not suggesting that.
Oh, okay.
That's not what I mean.
So world language is world language. It's not like you have, like, an 8th grader could take 8th grade math or algebra. There's 2 different courses. Whereas, like the flashy light too. You're not
The
gonna miss-
music,
I
the
know, I'm
music
sorry.
and the,
Must be the
Hello?
light.
You're
Yeah, I'm in a meeting. Who is this? Okay,
So Tracy's
yes,
math-wise,
please.
we should definitely sit. I can give you the history and the philosophy.
I think it would make sense that we.
We're in a good place now. better
Yes,
place
that's
now.
great. I'm glad we're in a better place. Really want to look at the math output of students and the percentage of students really being successful coming out of 5th into 6th, 6th into 7th, 7th into 8th, so that we're not creating more gaps
Right.
and trying to rush people
One-
through.
One way
appreciate
that was handled in my past experience is that kids that wanted to get algebra credit in the high school from their middle school education took algebra 2 years.
Yes,
the high school
7th and
class,
8th, that is
7th and
correct.
8th.
That is, but there's a process for it,
Yeah.
and their understanding of math concepts is very visible, and we're not trying to jam it down their throats and rushing them through, because math, it comes back to bite you. It's algebra that hurts when you try to take calc if you don't really have a solid understanding of algebra. So that's, I just don't want to create
Well,
stress
I really
for
appreciate
kids.
that mindset. I
I-
really appreciate that.
Thank you.
I agree with you, but just for the record, it was never my intent to force anybody to do that. It was an option.
This is not personal to you.
No, no,
This
this
is
has nothing
just
to do
in
with you.
I'm
general.
just talking about
This
the
is-
policy that's in front
No,
of us.
I'm talking about the kids
This,
being
this has
forced.
been
I'm a product of that,
eight-
and I'm like having PTSD
See,
just thinking.
and I don't
about
want
it.
that.
Like,
This is like
Same.
an 8-year curriculum battle, that
From high
has
school.
nothing to do with
And
this.
you're on
Right.
shaky ground
No,
when you get to
no.
ninth grade going, do I really have a grip on
Yeah,
this?
yeah, we really do want to create mathematicians, not that everybody has to become one, but at least a level of understanding, so you're not having stress while you're trying to take an assessment, right? So I think it probably sounds like it wouldn't be a bad idea to digest this a bit more
That's fine with me. I never
and put
expected
it on, yeah, put it on the, and I think we're gonna move through this much, because there's now more understanding. You have knowledge of what you experienced. We know the law changes. I have experience from this legislation as well. So would love to just be wise and thoughtful in devising a policy that makes sense with ample time for us to implement as well.
All right, then here's what I'm gonna propose, if this works for folks. Particularly regarding the issue of credit at the high school for middle school level work. Can we ask that you work with the administration?
That's
to
exactly
come up-
what's happening, yes. That's
to
what
come
will
up with
happen,
some-
yes.
All right, in that case, we'll circle around and come back to this in our next meeting. If that's okay. I did just want to, before we move on completely, draw your attention to, I did revise the forms that went with the policy a little bit. I don't know if anybody has any feelings about that. I don't think I did anything that would cause problems, but I just wanted to make sure.
We'll talk about it next time. I'll really dig through and talk about it, yeah.
Okay.
Like it was clerical.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
most of this taken from Cabe?
Some of it was taken from CABE, some of it is based on, as far as the forms go, sort of common sense.
Yeah, I
Um,
totally agree.
I don't mean to, it's just what it was.
Right.
Revising the rest of the stuff. And then a lot of it came out of discussions initially with Dr. Caprito, and like I said, trying to capture the kind of things we were talking about. It was a useful discussion. It wasn't definitive. I don't think either one of us saw it that way.
No,
And we had even talked at that time about the idea that we would be working on this for a while. It wasn't gonna be something that we were gonna come in and say, okay, we're done, we'll bring it to the board. That's been the habit, but it doesn't need to be. And there's good reason for it not to be, especially on something like this.
Yeah,
So.
agreed.
All right, so we'll move that to our next meeting for reconsideration. And that means our last policy is the climate, school climate policy. And I just, before we go into this too much, when I was going through this, this is a policy that we are required to adopt by 2025. So for once, instead of being behind the curve on something, we'll actually be a little bit ahead of it, which is kind of one of my goals along the way here. It seemed like there were so many additions to the original policy, and our original policy was close to identical to what CABE had at that time, I think. But it seemed like there were so many additions. It just wasn't worth the clerical work of trying to mark them all in the original policy. And so what you have is the CABE policy, and again, a little background. The state law that created this also required a group to come together to write this policy. And that group was led by Jolie Goller, who runs policy for CABE. He actually wrote this policy, and not alone, obviously, but he wrote this policy. And it didn't, I just didn't see a whole lot that we needed to do differently other than maybe a little language in the beginning that I wanted to either preserve or amplify a little bit. But the rest of it is almost completely identical to the CABE policy, which is by definition the state policy.
You said this needs to be adopted by 2025. That's for everyone? That's what you mentioned?
I'm sorry,
That
say
state
again?
it needs to be
Yes,
adopted
by state law.
State law?
We either have to adopt the policy or we have to adopt something that mimics it so closely, might as well just adopt the policy, it's state law.
I really appreciate, because I was kind of reading up on this at the same time as Jim, the way that it's presented with the definitions are very clear and to the point. There's a lot of definitions in here, but I think that will help any misunderstanding or assumptions, confusion, knowing that there's exact definitions for all of this.
One other thing I'll add, Mr. Goller is currently working with a group that is actually putting together what will be a universal bullying reporting form, which we're going to need to adopt, I think. We're going to want to anyway, but I think we're going to need to adopt that when that comes out. And he's suggested to me, I think, that that would happen sometime in the spring. So we may be revisiting this just to adopt that policy or that form and add to it. I don't know that that's a reason not to move forward, but just let you know.
I had a question. Under school climate committee,
Yep.
point number 3, a demographically representative group of students enrolled at the school as deemed, as developmentally appropriate. So I kind of want to, how do I say this?
Oh, no, I'm still trying to find the spot you're looking at.
If you,
Which page?
Not numbered.
it's,
Numbered?
it's not really numbered, you just look
Oh,
for the
you're
heading
looking at the
School
green.
Climate Committee.
Okay, hang on.
It's the 5th page of the green.
Oh, it's after. Gotcha, okay, thanks.
Okay, so point number 3, I think I just need a better understanding of how that would work, because we have obviously a greater demographic of a certain group of students versus others that may be, you know, from a diverse standpoint, you know, in such a minority. How would that, how could those voices be represented?
Speaking, do you want to field that one or should I?
I think that at the school level, it's very wise when they have a membership that there is representation of their population. Even if it's a small percentage, then the membership can at least have that same type of percentage as opposed to exclusion.
Right.
Should we add the word diverse?
Yeah, it was
A
in there.
demographically diverse representative, well, that
Well,
doesn't, that does, but like, because to what I think I'm hearing, and again, I don't know, a demographically representative group of students enrolled in school, to me, that sounds like a group of what the majority of the school is. right?
Not-
Demographically
not-
I don't
representative.
think that's the intent of the
No,
language.
I don't think so either.
I with you, but that is what it sounds like.
Even where it says who are diverse, including members who are racially or culturally or linguistically
I'm
representative.
not looking at the right.
Under school climate
Look at the first paragraph underneath that,
committee.
underneath that heading.
Yeah, I mean, my lens is that diverse or diversity or something along the lines should be there for what's being represented.
I mean, personally, I don't think it hurts anything to add
I
one
don't think it
word.
hurts either.
Yeah, I mean, it is covered up here,
Right.
but
Could be another reminder.
it could be another reminder.
Because this explains like what, in the opening paragraph explains like who are considered diverse.
All right, so
And
let me,
just reminding that it's a demographically diverse group
okay, so
representing students.
here's what I'm gonna suggest as an edit for this, if folks are okay with it. A demographically diverse and representative group of students. Does that work?
Mm-hmm,
Yes.
yes.
Having been in school administration for 20 years, I would just like to say, boy, they're adding stuff for you guys, aren't they?
And this legislative season isn't over, so we might be revisiting this sooner than you think, because they keep making changes, yeah.
But having a jumping off point.
Do we-
It's
Here,
easy
and then
though,
we
it's
can
easy,
tweak
because
it
then you
as
come
it
back
goes.
and you only might need to add a phrase or change. So
Exactly.
I don't have a problem with moving this forward now.
Mhm.
All right. So if I'm following correctly, we've added 2 words. And that's the only real edits we've done on this policy as proposed. Is that correct, or am I missing something?
Unless you want to do this.
Oh,
streamline.
yeah, tell them.
It's just the opening, under Connecticut School Climate Policy. The East Haddam Board of Education believes that school climate is conducive to teaching and learning as opposed to a school climate. That was just streamlining, was all.
Sure.
Believes that school climate conducive to teaching
Is
and
conducive to teaching and
learning.
learning.
Okay, so take out that
Must
too,
be
so.
free from threat, harassment, any type of bullying behavior.
Okay.
So you just need a motion.
Yeah, and I wanted to just talk about now that we're through that, the training section.
Can you hang on one second?
Sure.
I just want to, if you're going to change the language the way you just did,
Yeah,
the East Haddam Board of Education believes that
school climate.
school climate to be conducive to teaching and learning must be.
Sure.
Because otherwise it implies that it's already, school climate is conducive. Well, not if it's a bad climate.
In a negative way, right?
All right, sorry about that.
Yeah,
Go
no,
ahead,
no
Sean.
problem. Just in the training section, again, just because it seems to have been a hot topic over time, we've seen it a few times recently in meetings. I've gotten, pulled aside, in regards to, specifically actually in regards to the SEL, social and emotional learning. So I'm just curious, asking a couple questions for what was brought up as far as,
Oh, the school employee training?
yep, the school employee training, yeah.
Yeah.
So as far as just questions on, how many trainings do we get a year? Is any visibility to the public as far as, or, as far as what services or what trainings are coming up, what services, who's running them? There's just it's a hot topic. Some may
We
think
can
it's great, some
certainly-
may think it's,
No, we can certainly do that, and I don't think it's just in a box, right? So social emotional learning really is like trauma-informed instruction, right? how do we teach students that might not be at their best in front of us for lots of reasons, and being aware of that.
Yeah,
And also, when there's a falling out between kids, how do we restore that relationship, right? Cooperative learning is so important, and you'll have a student, no, I can't work with so-and-so, or I can't work with and that's really hard to navigate. And sometimes we do get that from families. You got to keep this one away from that one because of something that they did. It's hard to navigate all those requests when you've got 20-plus kids in front of you and you're trying to teach them to be respectful to one another, to be forgiving if that's what's needed. Like, so it's much more than just like an isolated topic. This is all encompassing, and kids don't regulate very well any longer like they used to. Like there was a reliable, as an educator, it was very reliable that behaviors and expectations aligned to home and school. That's not necessarily the case, or their life experiences have added trauma, and that's on the rise. And so the teacher has to be able to adjust so that students can access learning. That's really what it's about. It's about students accessing learning, right? We have to be culturally responsive. There's a lot that we have to be responsive to.
sure, totally understand that. I mean, with that said, though, since we are, basically taking the role for what may or may not have happened in the past, taking the role, stepping into, to help with those certain areas, you think that would be visible to the public or have the right for them to understand where this training is coming from?
Sure.
What-
I haven't
what the
signed up for any
training
particular
is?
training.
Yeah, I mean, how many trainings
Second
are?
step, that's coming for 4th and 5th graders, Jason. I don't know if there is, if it's something that teachers study, or if there's a physical person that actually is a part of that. I don't have any contracts that I've signed.
Right, so that one doesn't come with the next outside.
It just comes with tips for the classroom environment.
Descriptive, it talks about their activities. A lot of this we do in-house, a lot of this is regular discussions.
Okay.
We have a partnership with ESS now. We've brought them
Okay.
in, multiple times this year to do PD.
But they work with families too.
They work with families.
Yeah.
So when you say it's all encompassing, it's like, it's a regular conversation all the time. But I think it would be helpful to kind of bundle that up and show it to you, like what the training
Yeah,
looks like.
absolutely.
Well, yeah, because again, just touching base, so because if we're already talking about bringing this into the middle school, right? So we've been doing this.
The
in
second step.
Right, which is
Yeah, we do
another
it at the
extension of it.
elementary,
We do it
yeah.
at the elementary, which, again, so people want to be comfortable with even whatever you're saying, that sounds all great, but then we're gonna bring it, so with younger kids, it's kind of a, phase one of their emotions and behaviors and where we're
That's
dealing with
exactly
that,
what it
but as we integrate it into the middle school, now it's kind of on a different level, you're molding kids to some
But to be
extent.
clear, second step isn't what we're relying on for SEL training. PBIS for years did formal training on that. SEL is a pretty encompassing term.
Great.
Second step is just a program designed for smaller children to learn how to interact better, how to do conflict resolution, how to greet each other, because it's stunning how that has decreased over the last few years. That, to the fact that I think you just said it, like that used to be take care of that at home, but now we have to teach 8th graders how to like behave on a field trip,
Yeah.
which is a head scratcher, and all that's part of SEL.
I think to get to what you're kind of
Yeah, I mean,
asking,
I'm not-
I found it and I can share it, I don't think I shared it with you, that ct.gov does have grade by grade guidelines for all encompassing of SEL based on each point, and gives a description of what should be aligned with it from kindergarten through grade 12. I think it's kindergarten, might be preschool through grade 12.
Sure.
And it's like on the .gov site. I can send that to you. And then I know that going forward, there's going to be more discussion about that and how it's implemented and being transparent, obviously.
And that's, again, I'm not disputing any of the work that's being done or what kids at certain levels should be or shouldn't be taught. I'm just trying to, it's a hot topic again for, maybe we're in the know, and then you can go to ct.gov and look at all that, we're in the know. But to the average
Correct.
parent who isn't in the know, visibility of this topic is important. So when you read these, so that's what I'm trying to bring here, visibility around it, because we're talking in here about instituting a school climate, a coordinator. So then that coordinator / you would be solely responsible for developing the plan, for then going out and getting that, hiring the organization that's gonna bring that. So again, having visibility around this, so then we're gonna put that coordinator into that one. That's a lot of kids, a lot of motion, a lot of things involved. So having a lot of visibility around it. Is there any reason why we couldn't, okay, how many trainings per year? You update the public as far as when trainings, what training, who it's being done by?
Can I just interject two things real quick?
Sure.
One, just for the sake of anybody who ever actually watches this, would you just explain what PBIS means?
Oh, positive.
Oh, sure. So it focuses on positive behavior. It was, the district took advantage of a grant that came through the state to get training, where we sent a team out to teach positive behavior, reinforce positive behavior. You'll see it on our report cards.
What are the words that the acronym actually stands for?
Positive behavior intervention systems.
Thank you.
Supports,
Supports.
yes,
Right, but it says
yes,
systems, it
yes.
just didn't sound right.
No, it's,
We're accustomed to this stuff,
Yeah.
but I think a lot of people aren't.
No, I appreciate that.
The other thing, I'm not clear, Sean, on what it is you're looking for. And what I mean by that is, are you looking for us to write and add language requiring some specific action in policy by the, from the
Yeah,
board?
that's what I'm asking.
Okay. I'm a little leery of that. I don't have any problem with saying that things have to be made public in some fashion, I guess. But when you get to, how many trainings and who's providing them and stuff, that's day-to-day operations. We don't have any business in that.
Sure,
And-
on
and-
regular curriculum, yeah.
Well, any curriculum. We approve curriculum. We have that right as the curriculum committee, and the board should be doing that.
Would we be approving this?
Pardon?
Would we be approving this curriculum?
I don't know that there's a formal curriculum that's been proposed. If there is, then yeah, we'd have to approve it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
That's
But-
why I'm asking these questions, because the questions that I'm asking are a lot of questions that a lot of parents also have. So
And
I'm
I
not,
don't have any problem with it. I'm just trying to
not
figure
gonna
out what we
ignore
do now.
so this policy has been in place for a long time. It's not the first time that we needed to have a curriculum person at the school level. And it used to be slightly changed, the language that was used, but we're going back even more than a decade. But to your point, there is a curriculum that comes with that particular program that Jason was talking about. It is lessons that guide a teacher to help young children interact, right? There's something that happens in the playground and it's carried over into the school. I mean, like really very low level, just day to day, things that you see at home with siblings. At school, we don't just say, oh, well, you two siblings, just figure it out. No, like we got to intervene. We got to make sure no one is getting hurt. All kinds of interventions are in place. The intent is not to undo values or to challenge that in any way. So I think I know what experience you're talking about. That's not the intent of this policy at all. But it's become the state is aware that in certain environments, in certain settings, it becomes even more challenging for a teacher to navigate the student population that's in front of that teacher. That is not East Haddam. East Haddam is not reflective of that. I think East Haddam probably was doing great things, but once it's legislated, it goes to every single district. PBIS has been around for a long time, was being implemented in districts where there were huge challenges with student misbehavior, huge challenges in the classrooms, like every classroom. But there's a lot of positive to it, and so there was a grant opportunity, you got some training, but it's not like that's our student population per se, that we had to jump on it. It's just trying to do good things based on funds that are out there. I have no problem at all saying this is the calendar for professional development, and this is what the teachers are experiencing. They work for you, so of course, I have no problem with that at all. We're not looking to hide anything.
Right.
Because if what we're doing is ethical, then, we shouldn't be hiding it.
Shouldn't
So.
need to.
And it's
Yeah.
not,
I'm not, yeah.
like
I
a
just don't wanna
pivot.
assume.
It's not all of a sudden, the state regulated it, so we're changing everything to do SEL. SEL has been implemented, SOAR, all the SOAR expectations is PBIS,
That's right.
is social emotional
Right.
learning.
All of it.
Right.
And they have SOAR
Character
expectations
counts.
for the bus, for the schools, for field trips, for everything. So we're already doing it, we're just putting the language in. But I hear you
Once again, I'm
because,
not trying to change it, I'm just trying to give visibility on, so SOAR and all that, but so who is to make the decision on what organization comes in to train? Who
I
makes that
believe
decision?
that it has to be like a state-approved organization, right?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
The bottom line is
It would be
that
the superintendent. Ultimately, the superintendent has to approve
The-
that.
the
I have to sign
administration
off
does that work.
on the payment, I have to sign off on contracts. So, yeah, it's a team effort to decide, but in the end, it's the superintendent.
Would it be
That's-
helpful for us to then provide a list of resources, to Sean's point, for parents to go to? Like, for example, if parents want to learn about ESS, if parents want to learn about the state grade-by-grade requirements, maybe have a section of our website
Absolutely.
have those resources so they can go on, to your point, and learn about what it is and what's required at each grade level and what assessments we're doing, et cetera. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, again, just all about visibility. I mean, again, it's not a question, that's why I was here, to bring more visibility to it.
Well, I
Because
think actually.
If I have questions, I know other people have questions, without getting specific into it, the organizations, who chooses the organizations to run the training? Because again, it's just in the background, things are happening, and when it's dealing with so much, that, influence on kids, everyone wants to just be comfortable. It's easy to say, we're just doing the basics and this and that, and we can assume that East Haddam is going to just be correct, or, and we don't have to deal with what, so-called what you had said, but we're assuming, and in time, we're setting the precedent for the future. So in time, how do we have visibility on who is being chosen to run these trainings and to put their influence? Ultimately, it would be across our students.
I
across
hear
our
you,
children.
and we're definitely not enemies of parents, and so we should never, ever make decisions or do anything that is to prevent families from knowing what's happening in schools. Like, that would certainly be an unethical practice.
Yep, just because it's been apparent. Obviously, we've had one that's come recently, but it's not the only one. So, I mean, if that is a question into where
Sure.
in the trainings, so
Sure.
one to me is enough, but I know there's not just one, there's many.
Yeah, this is a partnership. We're here to work together and
Right.
to develop children.
Yep.
And not to be at odds with families.
Yep.
Yeah, I would certainly hope we would avoid that. It seems to me that adding a page to the Board of Ed section of the district website addressing SEL and maybe including things like a link to the document that you sent and stuff like that would be comparatively manageable in terms of getting the work done. I may be wrong on that, but I'm thinking it.
The website has many challenges, but yes, we definitely need to do that, but there are many challenges with the website.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that. If we were able to accomplish that, Sean, would that meet the need?
So so that would possibly help people become more in tune with what it is. What's the avenue for people that, okay, they read what it is, and then again, the trainings, go back to who's training and what. What's the avenue for people that might not be comfortable with it, because we said this is instilled into it, and again, I'm thinking middle school, is that gonna just be instilled into the day-to-day curriculum, or is there waivers? I mean, it's just a lot of questions for those type of things, especially when you get into a middle school level, where, again, it's more influence on the being as opposed to just kind of small behavioral things for younger kids. So again, we can put something
Okay.
on the website that would help them see definitions, but again, that doesn't, okay, so they write a definition, they still want to know who is doing the trainings so what definitions are being used, what is being taught, what is being pushed more than other things, so that doesn't really solve that.
This policy here has lots of definitions,
Right.
which I am not, I don't know, we don't have the, oh, we do have the old one.
Right now,
That
if
did
we
not
were to
have
just
all
read
of
this,
those.
I wouldn't know who's doing the training, when is the next
See, I
training,
guess-
and
I'm
what would it
confused
be?
about the, and this may not, and if this is not the place to be having it, please let me know, but do we have access to the staff trainings for anything else that they're trained on?
Not that
And
I'm
do we
Nothing
have
is
any
shared with you, apparently,
Do we
unless
have
we-
can I walk into the school and be like, I want to opt my, I mean, there are things to opt your child. I'm gonna take a few steps back. It's already in the school. It's already been
So, yeah.
happening since PBIS was put in.
So is math and writing,
Right.
because that's what, math and writing doesn't change, it's just what it is.
Well,
We're
actually,
talking about
I would
social,
argue that
Does
math and
change.
writing
okay.
changes quite a
I'm not
bit.
Instructional
saying
strategies,
instructional
definitely.
strategies,
Right.
but it is what it is. It's not a behavioral situation that can mold a family's child.
I hear you.
I, speaking just for myself, I'm very uncomfortable with the idea that we are going to basically be required to get parental agreement with decisions to make training. That's an administrative function. We don't have a role in that, and neither do the parents. Now, if the parents don't like the way a policy is being implemented, they have every right to address that in board meetings. But the idea of saying that we have to notify them who we are going to hire to provide training, or when that training is going to be, it's an overstepping, to me, it's an overstepping of massive proportions. And beyond that, it's impractical. Where does it stop? When do we not have to report and assent? Because what happens is, you're gonna put this information out there, Sean.
Sure.
And then people are gonna decide whether they like it or not. And then they're gonna decide whether they are going to fuss about it or not. We're gonna be spending so much time talking about this that we won't get to actually educate any kids. It scares the living bejesus out of me.
Then again, I'm bringing this up because it's a hot topic, it's not just me, and I'm not saying that we have to ask for approval of the parents, it's just, I said,
But that's
of
going to be the
transparency.
effective result.
And last time I checked, approval from parents was a kind of an important thing. But again, this isn't in regards to every bit of curriculum, even though we should be overseeing curriculum, which, from what I've understood, the board hasn't in many years.
Yeah, no, and
So
that.
so
is
that
something
right
we
there
will
is an
change at
assumption
some
that
point.
has been not done in the past as well, right there, that's proof
Absolutely.
of that.
Absolutely, that's.
So for
why I
me
put
to
those.
just go along with the wind
Well,
saying,
let me
well,
ask
we
you
can
this.
assume that it's all in good intention.
Let me ask you this, what is the language that you would propose adding to the policy? Rather than talk about this
Yeah.
amorphously.
But I wanted to bring it up to see if there was any
Oh, I
other-
understand that, but, you know, I had asked you, was there something you wanted to add, and you said yes, so what would the language be? Because it may very well be that you're gonna propose something that no one has any concerns about, and we're all gonna say, sure, fine, well, go for it. And right now, we're sort of discussing and mildly arguing
sure,
over
sure.
something we don't even know what it is we're arguing over.
Is it, now, is that too much to ask as far as, again, well, if we approve curriculum, or supposed to be, approving the training curriculum on who, on the organization who's being chosen? I mean, it's not like an every week thing, right? I mean, you would know that well in advance.
But that's not something boards of ed ever get into.
That's
We-
admin,
Admin.
that's the
Sure.
other side of the
I'm
road.
asking,
So Sean, I could add
I
one more
ask
thing.
questions.
Like, kind of layer, like the board approves curriculum,
Sure,
standards, perhaps objectives, but at a certain point, it becomes very granular to the classroom with instructional strategies.
sure,
The board really has nothing to do with that.
sure.
This feels very similar to that, where the board needs to say that, okay, we have state law, we have policy, we have to implement, we have to teach SEL, we have to have a, you know, these things here. The board needs to approve that, but the, how we do it and how the strategies to implement that gets a little bit fine compared to like the bigger picture of what the state law is.
Right, we're the ones tasked with ensuring that our teachers have appropriate training so that kids can learn. That's the goal here with the SEL focused on adults.
Okay.
So that we're not setting kids off, that we demonstrate patience and care when we're educating children. That's really the big umbrella.
Sean, I keep hearing transparency, I'm 100% in agreement with that. If you want to say, like, how are you doing this? No, let's talk.
Right.
Or what is this? Let's talk. Absolutely, because for my experience with this and a lot of topics out there in education, the more parents know, the more supportive they are. But I think it's the not knowing, filling in the blanks.
Sure.
Reading something on Facebook that's
You don't know, you
misinformation.
assume the worst, and then we might end up with a lot of parents that come here.
But in
and
fact, when you get
quite
to the
know
basis
exactly.
of this, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, of course I want my child to be a good person.
Of
I want
course,
my child
exactly.
to be-
And that's where I was trying to go to with that, to see if there was something, do I have the exact verbiage? No, I don't.
But to your point, I think a lot of the questions, I mean, this goes to a larger issue of parent involvement in
Yep.
the school district, coming to our meetings, meeting the superintendent, when we advertise that there's going to be opportunities to come and speak your mind and having those opportunities. But this policy also includes a school climate committee, which includes the families of the students. So I think a lot of input can be shared there.
Yeah.
So,
It's kind of like so you don't know what you don't know, though. And so say like with the election or the referendums, until we go put it on Parent Square, people aren't coming out. But when we put it on Parent Square and make it visible for them to see and go, huh, okay, now I wasn't interested because I didn't know to be interested, but now I'm interested and I have questions, so now I'm going to ask them. So same type of scenario, you don't know what you don't know. So again, just trying to find an avenue to make it visible so questions can be raised, not necessarily bad ones, you know, but just questions that can be raised because again, this is a very important. It's not a math thing. It's not a, you know, cursive writing thing. It's how my child is being taught good, different behaviors, values every day.
So CABE has many policies written out that we haven't adapted. And they have one about social emotional learning specifically that has all different language, all different ways to go about it, just like the guidelines if one wanted to do one. And I would love to have us at some point work on that so we would have more specific SEL language in policy in addition to this, because this is just the school climate policy.
Sure.
So I think that's definitely something that we absolutely could work on as to make sure that we have included in that the concerns that can be have the answers for.
Yeah, just the first time this has come up, you know, is everything, so whether this isn't the right, proper place to have language or policy around it, then I can,
I don't personally think there's anything wrong with bringing it up. I
Yep.
think you're well within your rights morally and intelligently.
And this is why
I,
there's 4 of us.
I'm just trying to figure out in practical terms,
Yeah.
what do we do now?
right.
And so I'm envisioning a couple of possible options. We approve the policy with the minor revisions we've made and make a commitment to look at it, the actual SEL policy at some point at a later date. That's one option. Another option is we table this and come back to it next month when Sean will come in with proposed language for us. And I would add that to the Google Doc that I put out there, you know, every meeting, so that people could consider it ahead of time, if that was what you wanted. You could, if you wanted to propose some kind of language now that we would add, we could do that. We could table it and say, you know, we just need more time to think and we'll come back to it next month. I do whatever you want. I mean, I'll do whatever folks want. I'm not here to dictate to everybody. I am here to try to make sure that the time is used efficiently.
Sure. I mean, is there any harm in that, right? No harm, this isn't
So-
going anywhere.
So let me ask this. Would somebody please make a motion of some kind so that we can discuss the motion if needed and vote on the motion?
I make a motion to table this until the next meeting.
Second.
Any discussion?
I guess I just would want to say that I think it was made clear that we took this from the CAVE, the Connecticut site. So this isn't like our language, this is like the state's language, or CAVE's language.
Well, it will be our language.
And then, is that the only, I mean, is that the only part in this that you would want to add additional language to, or just have more time to go over it
It is
in
really
general?
focused on the training of our employees who train our children.
The training part, okay.
That's really what it was about, and again, visibility, but I just see how it just goes through a coordinator who just says ultimately responsible for all of that, and it just seems like if it goes without invisible, you don't know what you don't know, who knows? Maybe it's not today, tomorrow, 4 years, 6 years down the road, seems like that person would have a good amount of, influence on which way everything goes without visibility around it.
So
That's what I'm looking for.
is the question, so would adding a landing page on our website to provide the SEL language and resources,
That would be in addition.
To add that language to the policy?
to add that language to the policy? Or is the additional language that you want, just so I understand,
Yep,
is the additional language that you want to also add to the policy that you would want the board to approve, or that you would want the board to just have the
can it
disclosure?
be, yeah, just as far as the visibility, so if there was a statement in there, and again, I'm not sure how practical, you said that it's not practical, to show the visibility on, to give it out to the public of some sort, as far as training specifically in regards to that. you know, again, that's why we could table it, so I can come up with a little bit more specifics as what it was originally just a concern I was talking about. We started talking about it more deeper, which brings more questions, so that's why I'm asking to table it.
We have a motion and a second. And if I'm reading it correctly, behind the motion is the idea that Sean's gonna come to a next meeting with something more
More
specific
specific.
for us
Yeah,
to
exactly.
be able to ponder.
Yep.
I think that's fair.
Unless there's further discussion, I'm gonna call for a vote. Any further discussion? Last option. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. We will revisit this policy next month.
Wonderful.
Sorry?
Wonderful.
Can I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bye-bye.
Recording stopped.